What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Icing the Puck. This is number 2 of the 4 bonus episodes that are coming y'all's way. Jordan, Team USA's roster was released. We just went over Team Canada. Now we're regrouping here to cover our own country. And yeah, might be a little different than the Team Canada episode. Team Canada, I feel like a few snubs, a few guys that we felt were a little left out. A few guys we were disappointed didn't make the cut. Team USA, there's a good amount of guys that were, at least I'm upset with, that didn't make the cut. I don't know. I'll let you start out here. I guess tell me what you like about this Team USA roster.
I like the goalie picks. I like having, Hellebuck, good regular season. He's playing, he has good, regular season play and stuff like that. And then as soon as he gets into like playoffs or any kind of, anytime it really matters, he kind of chokes a little bit. So
He
I'm
drops the
curious to
ball,
see.
tends to drop the ball.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious to see how that's going to play out. But I do like having Jake Ottinger. I know he's having a little bit of a rough season. It's not his best performing season ever, but not a bad season by any means. And then Swayman, always a solid player to have in net.
And
I
he's
do
really
like the
stepped it up again this year. He's really stepped it up. I think he was in the 8s with his save percentage last year. I think he's rocking a pretty high 9. So
Yeah.
good to have him. Good to have him.
Yeah. I think it's pretty solid goaltending kind of roster right there. And then, of course, I do like some of the defensive picks. I obviously Quinn Hughes, Brock Faber, those are really good picks. Those guys play really well together now that they're both in Minnesota. Zach Werenski, I'm a big Zach Werenski guy. I like him a lot. Crazy good player. He's just now back from a little injury there, but already just making an impact again. And then, as much as it pains me to say it, Slavin, like I said in the last one, I always forget that he's American, and then he pops up. I'm like, damn, glad he's American. Yeah, he's a really, really good, like, shutdown, just defensive defenseman. Really good picks there.
Something about Jacob Slavin, I'm going to jump in here real quick, is if Canada didn't win 4 Nations, if USA were to win 4 Nations last year, Jacob Slavin would have been my MVP pick. I think he would have been a lot of people's MVP pick. He was blocking every single shot that came his way.
Yeah.
And the dude was, talk about a guy who gets down in the trenches and gets work done on the defensive side is Jacob Slavin. And his offensive potential is underrated. I don't think people talk about his offensive potential too much, and he's been hurt a little bit. He's been in and out of the lineup a little bit this year for Carolina, but this is a guy who I think out of any defenseman in the NHL, he gives it his all in every aspect of his game. And people don't really talk about him too much. I feel like 4 Nations last year was the first time he really kind of came into the mainstream.
He is, and he is a really underrated defenseman. His name doesn't get brought up very often, but then again, true like defensive defensemen nowadays don't really get brought up as much, unless they're paired with a really, noticeable offensive defenseman. But that doesn't happen all that much because a lot of times those guys get paired with other like shutdown defensemen on like the third line or something like that. But this dude's a, top line. I think he plays on Carolina's first line, doesn't he?
He does.
Yeah.
He's the first pairing.
Yeah. So, it's, like super underrated player. Like I said, it pains me to say that about a Carolina player, but
all bias is gone now because we're here for America.
As an American. Yeah.
We're patriots.
And then Charlie McAvoy. I really like Charlie McAvoy too. I think he's definitely not an underrated defensive player. Like he's very, well known. He's constantly talked about, but he definitely shows up in these kind of, this kind of play. He did in 4 Nations and stuff like that too. I think, didn't he get injured in 4 Nations
I think
too?
he got hurt early in 4 Nations. And another thing about McAvoy is I feel like when he first came into the league those first couple years, he was almost like the Quinn Hughes type or the Makar type. Like, I feel like he made a lot of flashy plays, gave some stuff up defensively, and now he's kind of settled in. He's gone under the radar a little bit. He's kind of become just an all-around defenseman, and he doesn't want to be a top talked about guy. He got his contract. He wants to play in Boston. He's played well. Like you said, he shows up in tournaments like this and in the playoffs. This is where he really shines.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I do like some of the offensive picks as well, the forwards. However, there are some offensive players I don't really understand.
Just hit me with them because when it comes to the forward group, I think that's most people's main gripe about this team,
Yeah.
and a lot of people were left off.
Yeah,
so.
defensively, the only one that I'm like kind of questioning, and again, it's like defensively, I think that this is one of their stronger areas too. Like Seth Jones, I don't think he's a bad player. I just think there were better options for sure, but I don't who that would be. I mean, you can get nitty gritty with that. He's not, like I said, he's not bad. It's not like it's a decent pick.
I would say a lot of people's counter to the Seth Jones pick, because obviously Seth Jones was picked for his offense. He's a power play quarterback. I mean, he's more on the offensive side of his game is where he shines. He struggles sometimes defensively. I think Florida has definitely helped him to play a more defensive way because they're so aggressive. You know, they need to have somebody on the back end. A lot of people argue that, you know, maybe a Lane Hudson could have fit in there somewhere. A Shane Gostisbehere could have fit in there somewhere. Two guys who have crazy offensive potential. I think, you know, there's a lot of things factored in this. It's kind of like Team Canada a little bit. Like, there's a lot of guys who have won championships, obviously, that they want on these teams. Seth Jones just won a championship with Florida. You know, he has the playoff pedigree that we've seen. Like, I think definitely him getting traded to Florida, helping them win that Stanley Cup, has made a big, effect in him making this roster, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, the only person that's not on the defensive roster that I think should be, and it's the one that everybody's talking about, Adam Fox.
Yep.
Although, I don't, like, I guess, and it's kind of a toss-up, like, who would you replace with it? I've seen a lot of people were saying, like, Seth Jones or Adam Fox is kind of the way that they were looking at it, but
yeah,
I mean, I think you could take out, there's a couple of guys in there that you could maybe swap them out for, but I think that's a big snub on that part. I like Adam Fox as well. The issue with his, though, is he's kind of inconsistent at times in his offensive performance. You know, it's either like he's like going crazy and getting a bunch of assists and, you know, putting up a bunch of points, or he goes like 20 games without a single assist or anything like that. And it's like
Adam Fox just recently returned from a pretty long injury as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, his legs might not be as fresh as Seth Jones, who's played the whole year, but I would agree with you there. I think Adam Fox is overall more valuable than Seth Jones. You know, I watched some Rangers games this year when Adam Fox was out. Okay. And statistically too, you go look at the numbers. I don't know the exact numbers, but the amount of goals and scoring chances that they get when Adam Fox is in the lineup versus when he's not in the lineup is crazy. And Adam Fox, I mean, dare I say, like, out of all of the guys that Team USA has picked, I'd say other than Quinn Hughes, Adam Fox is the best power play guy out of all of them. You know, Seth Jones is kind of agree with that, pretty good. Hanifin's pretty good. Werenski, obviously. I'd say Werenski, Hughes, and Adam Fox are three of the best power play American defensemen. You know, and you could really take a Hanifin or a Seth Jones out of there for Adam Fox. But
but even still, those other three guys are like, they do run the power play, but they're better on like 5-on-5, I think, sometimes then.
For sure.
Their offensive contributions are better there than sometimes on the power play.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say there's kind of 2.5 on the forwards that I'm a little like.
Okay.
So I'll kind of put all three names out there.
Warn me here. Am I preparing for a hot take, or is this a pretty standard?
I think one of them is a hot take, but I think you know what's coming.
You know, you might, if it's what I think is coming, you might be putting me in a corner and I'm ready to fight. I'm just letting you know. So
okay.
Let's see what it is. Go ahead. Give me the first two and then give me the hot take.
Okay, so the 1.5 is the two Rangers players, JT Miller and Vincent Trocheck.
That's what I thought.
The only one that I would maybe be a little bit like, I kind of say half is Trocheck.
For sure.
Because he does have a little bit more offensive production this year. But JT Miller is absolutely shouldn't be nowhere near this team.
Yeah, so I was actually talking with some other guys on TikTok. Shout out my boy Matt, Lips Puck and Chirps. Everybody go follow him. Great guy, huge New York Rangers fan. Gotta say, JT Miller is a lazy hockey player. He is, in my opinion, one of the worst captains in the league, if not the worst. Maybe he's a vocal leader, I don't know, but he does not lead with his play. He has had so many defensive mishaps this year. He has slacked in the offensive production. He is just not a good player who should have made this roster.
That's my biggest one. So like when you say like lazy, so there are like seriously good offensive players. The most notable are McKinnon and McDavid in a way that can be a little bit lazy on the defensive side of it. I think McKinnon more than McDavid, obviously.
But it's made up for.
Exactly. They are lazy because they rely on the other guys to defend.
They don't need to do that stuff.
And basically turn over the puck and get it to that offensive guy who just like blitzes down the fucking ice and scores. JT Miller is lazy on the back check and lazy defensively, but also doesn't produce offensively. So it's like, what are you doing?
JT Miller is a player who put up an over 100-point season in Vancouver, got a contract, okay, and came back to the States to play for the Rangers. And the Rangers are, I'm not going to use this episode for this purpose. I'm getting a little off track. This is a Team USA episode. But the Rangers and Chris Drury, he is one of the worst GMs in the league. They're one of the worst run organizations, and that's why they have JT Miller as captain. I'm sorry, Rangers fans, but this pick blew me away. And you know what? I shouldn't be hating on the Rangers right now. I really should be hating on Bill Guerin and Mike Sullivan. This is a total Mike Sullivan pick because he's the coach of the New York Rangers, and he brought in his captain probably to give JT Miller a good look, and yeah, he played. I'll say this. Let me go on the positive side real quick. He played okay in Four Nations last year. He did. Okay. Like he put down his foot for his country and he played harder than he usually would. So maybe that's something, but we're going to get into the snubs in a minute, but there's so many other guys I could have picked over JT Miller. I'll defend Vincent Trocheck real quick. Out of all of the guys on this roster, other than the Kachucks, Vincent Trocheck is a tough son of a gun who will get a lot of dirty work done. That
is why I say kind of like the half. He's one of those guys, like I could go either way on him being on the team, him not being on the team. And that is because, he is like a, like down and dirty, like just along the boards, like just work on it. Like he's that guy. And I don't know, like we talked about it with Canada. It's like, you do need that kind of thing on your team, but do you need that at the expense of some of these other offensive players that got snubbed that, are you ready? I think you know what this is going to be. I think you know what I'm going to say.
Just say it.
I don't think Auston Matthews should be on this team.
You're 100% wrong.
I know. I know you're going to say that. I know you think that. Dude has had 2 good games in the last month. So
wrong. Now, one thing. Okay.
It's a hot take. I know.
The one reason I will slightly agree with you is because we all remember Four Nations last year. Where is Auston Matthews? It was like a game of Where's Waldo. I was trying to find him on the ice. He wasn't doing a solid bit of anything until, the last round against Canada. He stepped it up a little bit. But Auston Matthews is the greatest American goal scorer of the past 5 seasons, okay? And I think it's been more like 4 to 5 good games in the last month, okay? Especially the last week alone. He has stepped it up, okay? He had a hat trick 2 games ago, and then just last night, he became the #1 goal scorer in Toronto Maple Leafs history with 421 goals, okay? This guy's on fire right now. He's starting to catch his flame as we move into the Olympics. Auston Matthews is ready to go, okay? He's full speed ahead right now. And you know what? I'm hoping that the whole title of Olympics over the title of Four Nations lights more of a fire in this guy's ass and gets him going. He's an amazing player, and there's no doubt about it. I'm a big Auston Matthews guy. I think being a Toronto Maple Leaf is a lot of pressure, but being an American is a little less pressure. This is something that he's here for.
Yeah, sorry, I'm looking at stuff too. I don't get it. He is like you said, I agree with all the stats and stuff like that. I know what you're saying, but Auston Matthews 2 or 3 years ago or Auston Matthews today are very different players.
I think he's just as good of a player. He's having a down year, but he's same skill.
When are we gonna let that? I mean, he's had 2 down years. He didn't have as good of a year last year either. So it's like,
but what is not too good of a year? How many points did he have last year?
I don't know.
Look it up. How many points did he have last year? My whole point is there's no denying, this is supposed to be the group of the best American players. And who would you we'll get into this, but who would you replace Austin Matthews with?
He had 78 points last year.
Yeah, I mean, that's still a solid year. It's not up to like, the standard that he was setting before. That's still a solid year. Like, I just think he's one of the best American players on the planet. So, like, you have to have him on this team. I don't like guys like JT Miller is not one of the best American players on the planet. I'm going to even say Brock Nelson is not one of the best American players on the planet. I would gripe more about the Brock Nelson pick, and I like Brock Nelson for his veteran leadership, and his play. He's a skilled player, but there's guys I would have picked. I have a whole list right here waiting for guys I would pick.
Guys like that, his current offensive production and his current level of play is better than Austin Matthews. That's great, like previous stats and legacy stats and that, that kind of stuff is great. We talked about it in Canada too with the goaltenders. Previous performance does not compare to how the players are playing right now, because that is a more accurate metric than, their season 2 years ago. That's where you have to look at, is he getting in just because of his recognition and that kind of stuff and like for his name, or is he getting in because of how well he plays? And it's not because of how well he plays right now.
I think this is where you and I differ a little bit, because I would say like you need a good mix. Like obviously Canada has a good mix of guys who have performed well throughout their career, and maybe they're not at the top of their game anymore. And then they have guys that are at the top of their game. The Austin Matthews pick, this is going to sound kind of crazy, but it's almost like you have to have like, and yeah, his current level of play isn't as good, but his skill overall, like you have to have somebody to match the McKinnons and the McDavids. And like, by all means at skill, like Matthews is a tier below them, but I don't think USA has a guy that's like at their tier level. Like a Sidney Crosby and Nathan McKinnon or Connor McDavid, but you have to have some of those names. Like, the names we have that can match up with that, I'd say are Jack Eichel, Austin Matthews, Jack Hughes. Those are the three names that really pop off the screen, are the guys who are at the skill level. Other than that, you have more of a tough guy team, which is, we embrace our identity as the tough guy team, but we have to have goal scorers. I think, I'm rambling a lot here, but maybe we could roll into the snubs a little bit because USA has such a lack of goal scorers. I'll throw the first name out there as a Stars fan. Where's Jason Robertson? If we want to talk about current level of play, where's Robo? Where is he? He has the most goals of any American player in the past 2 years, and he's not on this. I think that
is a division rivalry bias right there, that he didn't get a spot.
Oh, because of Bill Guerin? It might just be. There's 100% bias when it comes into choosing at least Canada and USA rosters, because there's so many players. But yeah, Jason Robertson not making this roster, in my opinion, is like super criminal. And it is probably bias, and that's why Bill Guerin, I told you over text the other day, he's my number one op. He gets Quinn Hughes, brings my Stars down. He doesn't put Jason Robertson on Team USA. He might have saved my bank account. I appreciate that. But, like, he's not saving Team USA here. I mean, Jason Robertson 100% should be here over JT Miller or Brock Nelson. So.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
He should be on the team over Brock Nelson. But he doesn't even have to. The point is, he should be here over JT Miller. He should.
Yeah.
He should.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I knew it was going to be kind of a hot take with the Austin Matthews thing. And I get what you're saying. I'm not. Like, obviously, he's a good player. Like, I'm not doubting that. But, I don't know. I just don't think the makeup of his team should allow for, in my opinion, currently, like, mediocre players to be on the roster. No matter what his, the leading goal scorer for Toronto, that's great. That doesn't help Team USA at all. Like, and there's a lot more that I think needs to go into it than previous history and that kind of stuff. But I get, like, you have to look at that stuff because it is an advanced metric that you have to look at to see, like, historical performance does, it does factor in a little bit, but I don't know. I just think current level of play, I think it's being rewarded for, like the name and the recognition and banking on, like, hopefully he's good. Hopefully he shows up, which historically in like competitive, that kind of stuff, playoffs, Four Nations, Austin Matthews disappears.
Yeah, he has a tough time.
Like regular
but-
season Austin Matthews and playoff Austin Matthews are also different players.
Mm,
So, I mean, there's a lot of different criteria to look at than,
yeah.
I know. And again, it is kind of a hot take for a hot take sake, like
Yeah.
just saying it. But like, I know I'm not the only person that has this sentiment and thinks that way.
Yeah, I definitely I think if we're talking about like goal scorers, I already brought up Jason Robertson. A guy maybe some people would argue is a better goal scorer right now than Matthews is Cole Caulfield as well. I think Cole Caulfield, everybody knows this, he didn't make it because he's 5'9". You could tell here with Team USA, I mean, they're going for.
He's going to get absolutely leveled by like some European players for sure.
Yeah, well, it's a totally different level of play in the Olympics, and Cole Caulfield, an incredible goal scorer, but no physical play, no defensive play, really. He's a one-dimensional player, and that's not insulting Caulfield. I mean, I'm a huge fan of his. He's great at what he does. Another one, I think this is more of an emotional snub. No Patty Kane in the Olympics. And at this point, I don't know if he'll ever get gold, but he's been injured a little bit, but still for a 37-year-old and definitely for the argument of namesake and history, legend, Patrick Kane, greatest American player of all time, debatably. And he's still playing. This is his last shot. And, it's just a little bit of a letdown that he was left off this list. Yeah, and then I'm going to go one more real quick while we're on it. Matthew Nyes. Where's Matthew Nyes? I mean, he is a big, strong, offensive. His all-around game is incredible. I think maybe he's just a little too young still. You could tell this team is definitely a little veteran biased. So.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really curious to see how this team is going to produce. Like, I think they are going to be very strong defensively. They're not going to let in, a lot of goals, but do they have enough offensive power to overcome the goals that they do let in? And that's where I think there is some questions. If anything, I can almost see more goals coming from the blue line and the defensive side of thing than the forwards, honestly.
Yeah, one forward, though, real quick. I'm saying a lot of names this episode, but one guy that I love that made the team.
Wait, can I guess?
Go ahead.
Oh, you're going to say Tayshaun?
Yeah. Dylan Larkin was on Four Nations. He played incredible last year. Tage Thompson didn't make the cut last year, and he's finally here. Like, this is our 6'6" monster. He scored on the Stars the other day, 93-mile-an-hour shot, and it was terrifying, even just seeing it on the screen. I love this guy. I've always been such a big fan of his, and for him to be able to represent his country now is awesome. We need him, and I've heard rumors that he's going to be on a line with the Kachucks. Nuts. Because the Kachucks could feed a puck. They could also feed a fist, but they could feed a puck.
Yeah.
So
those are those are guys that it's the question mark on them is like the same kind of thing, like their offensive production. Matthew Tkachuk is a little bit more better overall than Brady Tkachuk is, but they have really good chemistry together. That's the other thing too, is because I'm pretty sure the Olympics is like international hockey rules. So no fighting. Fighting is automatic ejection from the game. So yeah, no penalty for that. It's just gone. But I mean, so no line brawls at the opening phase.
It's a shame. It's a shame. Absolute shame.
I know. That was awesome though. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that'd be crazy. Those three players together. Tage Thompson is someone who is suffering from being stuck in Buffalo, due to be an absolute monster on other teams. And he is in Buffalo, but on other teams, he would be like one of the scariest dudes to play against on a team with super fast, it doesn't matter what, I mean, he is regardless, but God, can you imagine him playing with, I don't even know,
good
anywhere else. Yeah, anywhere else.
Good organization.
Yeah.
But yeah, and there are a couple guys on here that I think we already knew were going to make the team, but Keller, Gensel, absolute class guys, quiet guys who just continue to put up solid seasons. I mean, I think Keller had his first 90-point season last year.
A very underrated player. I think you just forgot about because he plays in Utah.
Underrated captain.
Yeah.
Gensel.
Kyle Connor. Kyle. Gensel.
Two players who play the same way, Connor and Gensel. I think we forget these are both 50-goal guys. You know, like that's something that we need to, maybe there is scoring, it's just hidden, but I think most of the scoring, if we want to win gold, it has to be carried by Hughes, Matthews, Eichel. Has to be carried.
Yeah,
But
a lot of these guys get overshadowed by the Canadian players that are on their team
for sure.
and like the bigger names in the league. But again, like there are, upcoming American players. There's more American players in the league than there like ever has been before, and they're high-end players. Like I said, the issue with the offense is like there are some people that were left off. Like I don't think the roster is like bad. I just think it could have been better.
Hate to
Does that
say
make
it's
sense?
a solid roster to win silver. Hate to say it, but it is.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, like I said, if anything, like their offensive side might have to be carried by like the defensemen. Like their offensive production might
For
need to
sure.
be carried by the defensemen, which is fine. That's cool with me. But yeah, I mean, and that's where I don't know. Like I said, with the whole Austin Matthews thing, it just like I almost look at it from like, should we give somebody else a shot that like doesn't seem to like choke it away every time? Maybe give somebody a chance that is maybe a little bit less of a overall superstar than Austin Matthews is, that can maybe shine.
I'm just curious to see who Matthews is going to be paired with. I think that will be the telltale sign. Like if he's paired with guys who complement him really well, okay, because all you have to do is just get him into scoring position, and he'll score 9 times out of 10. You just got to get him with the right people.
Wasn't he paired with?
I think last year he was with Larkin and
Yeah,
somebody else. I can't remember exactly who.
yeah. I mean, Larkin and isn't Genzel's a winger, isn't he?
Yeah.
Could see that. Maybe Connor. I can see that.
Yeah, I don't know. Like the thing with Matthews is he's there's a lot of finishers on this roster. Like you need a setup guy. You need 2 setup guys for Matthews.
I really did like the line in Four Nations with Matthew and Brady Tkachuk and then Jack Eichel.
Oh yeah.
That was a good line. That was such a
Incredible.
fun line to watch. Although, again, those guys are all like, I mean, Matthew Tkachuk is kind of the finisher guy. Like does that, but like Jack Eichel is an assist machine. Dude
Yeah.
is crazy with the assists.
I got a good line for you for Matthews. I got a good one for you, Matthews. I'm going Hughes, Boldy, Matthews. Matthews is center, obviously.
Yeah.
Put Hughes on the wing.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is one thing about this roster is a lot of these guys can be like mixed around a lot to make a bunch of different combinations that are really good.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like I say, yeah, I think we've kind of talked about it a lot already. It's just like it is a decent team. It just there were some guys that could have made this team better that for some reason didn't make the team at all, which is very confusing to me. But I don't know. I think their defense is enough to carry them a little bit here. Their defense and then goaltending.
Let's hope
But
Hellebuck just plays at a heart level.
I was gonna say, of the 3 goalies, who do you think is the starter?
It's funny. Like they're all very similar goalies. Like
I'll say it so it doesn't sound like you're being biased. I think Otter should start.
I was going to say that too. I think Otter should get the initial start, but I have a little bit of a hot take here. It's more of a fun take. Like towards the end of this, I think it's like up for grabs. Like I think all 3 of these guys are going to get a start, and I wouldn't be surprised if Swayman is playing better than the other 2 by the end of it.
Good. Yeah, I mean, with the goaltending, like I would be comfortable with any of those 3 guys starting.
Same.
Versus like talking from like, the Canada episode and roster and stuff like that. Everybody knows my opinion on those. There's only one guy on those 3 that I think should have been a starter. But yeah, any of these 3 guys I think could definitely hold their own and are good enough to be starters. Swayman, just statistically based on like wins and all that stuff, I guess actually no, he technically doesn't have the worst. I think that's Hellebuck would have the worst, wouldn't he? And that's the thing with like the Jets and with Hellebuck, like their play this year doesn't reflect their record. Like I think they play better than their record shows, and goaltending is another part of it, but that might just be kind of me trying to rationalize why the Jets are last in the league.
Yeah.
But I do like this roster. I do like it. It just doesn't feel 100% right to me.
Yeah, I'll say it for you. I like it. I don't love it. I think there's just some guys that the names I listed earlier, who I feel would have been better than a couple of the guys
Yeah.
that were chosen, but
I
at the
don't, I
same
don't,
time,
yeah, I don't look at it and I'm like super confident, like, damn, this is a good team. This is the team that's going to go win the gold. Like they could be a sneaky win. Like, they could, sneak their way into a gold medal, but it's not like I don't have like 100% confidence in this team. And that just might be, because it's the team that I'm rooting for.
For
I'm
sure.
like kind of hesitant, because I don't
Yeah.
want to like get my heart broken in a way,
I think like it comes down to like you look at Canada and USA and like it's obvious, like hate to say it, but like Canada just is better. Like they just really are. Like
they have a bigger talent pool to pull from.
they
So,
do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean
And-
that's Team USA. Not much else to cover here. I think we've said all that needs to be said. Some heartbreak, a little bit of love mixed in there. But
Some hot takes, some
Yeah.
My again, if anybody is curious, that's just me being a hater. I'll take it. I'm a hater. But yeah, it's I gotta be the country, like the contrarian or whatever, I always gotta be the opposite side. But yeah,
Well,
I don't know.
but-
Watch me be absolutely wrong and Austin Matthews be like the MVP of
that'd be crazy.
the only thing that, I mean, I'm okay with that. Like
Yeah.
I don't, if I'm completely wrong and he comes in is amazing, I'm okay with being wrong in that regard. But when that doesn't happen, I'm going to come back and be like, I told you so.
We'll see who steps up to the plate for this team.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm really excited for the Olympics. February 6th. Here we go. Bring it to us. I love this regular season hockey, but it's go time. Full speed ahead to the Olympics.
In-season tournaments are awesome. I
Yeah.
love it.
They're the best. So, God bless the USA.
Can't
Let's
wait
go
to
for
hear.
gold.
Yeah, looking for the gold. Can't wait to hear that Freebird playing so many times.
Should we open this episode with Freebird? Will we get a copyright strike for that?
I don't know. I'll see if I can find like an instrumental version of it, like with like a off-brand, like just
Yeah.
a couple notes different.
Some fan cover.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Well, hey, we will see y'all in the next one.
Yeah, more coming soon.